Good evening and welcome to the inaugural round of the Raceface AMS 2 Championship. We are going to be racing around Suzuka this evening, and we're just waiting for the guys to come in from their practice session, and we'll get right across to the quali session as soon as that happens. This is a new server, so we're still testing a couple of things, making sure everything's working correctly, so if there are any technical difficulties, please bear with us. But the practice session has now ended. It should be swapping across to the quali session very shortly, and we'll go live with the drivers as soon as that happens. I'm your host Skexus, and it's great to have you here with us, and I'm sure we're going to see some great racing from the guys on the grid. Alrighty, so right away we are going to be racing around Suzuka, and Ottens looks like they are heading out immediately. A little bit of weaving in the pit lane, possibly to try and get some temperature into the tires. And yeah, the overlay that you are seeing is the race director's overlay. Unfortunately, it's not possible to get rid of it without a second person to stream that. So we're going to be stuck with that for the race itself, but it's not too much in the way, so that should be fine. K-Fan currently heading out, leading the grid so far, and let's get the map up and running so we can see where everyone is. And yeah, K-Fan running in the number 2 Williams of Logan Sargent, so let's see if he can get that car to do what he wants it to. Clatters over the curbs there. Track limits, I do believe, are set closer to the GT track limits rather than the Formula 1 ones, so the white lines are not going to be as in play as we've seen in real life Formula 1, and to be honest, that could be a good thing. It will allow the drivers to push as hard as they possibly can. Well, we've seen a couple of guys get onto the grass and spin out very quickly. These cars are quite difficult to keep control of once they're on the grass. So coming down towards the final sector. Sector's not as visible on the map as we've seen in some other games, but yeah, I'm sure I'll be able to figure it out as we go along. Coming into the final chicane, the Casio chicane, and let's see how K-Fan does on this lap. We'll ride on board on the roof and see how it goes. And we see that car is now sideways, and an unfortunate end to the lap before it even properly began. So let's go on board with Azure. He has a lot of, well, we'll get alongside with Azure. He has a lot of experience with this game, and yeah, he's fast in pretty much everything he does. So let's see how he does around the Suzuka circuit in these Formula F Ultimate cars, I think they're called in Automobilista. They move a slide through the second corner there, but it looks like he keeps it together. And now into the S-bends, these iconic S's that so many places try to copy. Worth, welcome to the chat. Hansi, I see you there as well. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, let's see how Azure does through the rest of the lap. Quick right-hander coming up next. You can take it at incredibly high speed, and you can see he does exactly that. A little bit wide on the second part of that corner pair, but manages to keep it going. It got into the gravel. Luckily, the gravel not catching him like we saw a little bit earlier. Massive wheel spin on the exit of the hairpin, and now heading down towards Spoon. Please just let me know if there are any issues with the stream itself. This is the first time streaming AMS2, so there might be a couple of glitches here and there. Also, first time streaming onto this profile, so if there are any issues, please let me know, and I'll see if I can sort them while we are going. Final real corner, well, not final real corner, but final real high-speed corner, 130R, one of the most iconic corners on this circuit, and now into the Casio chicane. Let's see how he does. Looks like he's going fine through there. No worry about track limits, as I said earlier. Comes towards the line and sets the third lap on the grid. The line quite far down there, and a 129.0. So 4 seconds quicker than the next person in the form of Ottens, but Darth Maul has come through to complete his lap as well. So to him, he managed to do a 1.149, not bad. 2 seconds off though, so time to come, I am sure. Altman coming through the Casio chicane now. Let's see if he can do any better. Will stick close to the wall, I imagine. No, sticks to the outside of the track, getting towards the start-finish line and crosses the line now. 1:30.790. So we're seeing some pace coming out of the guys. 1.7 seconds back from Azure though. So Azure once again out in front, and Syntax comes across the line to complete the last of the laps that we're waiting for. 8 guys on the grid at the moment, and Azure leading them with 1:29.015. Alrighty, so let's see if anyone, it's a little bit difficult to see who is actually on a lap and who isn't. Splits does nothing. Timings takes up the whole screen, so I won't be running that as much as I otherwise would. So it's a little bit difficult to tell exactly who is doing what. Just want to try and open something just quickly. Maybe this one might be. Alrighty, so in the meantime, while I was looking for a couple of things just to make sure that I can get this all a little bit better, KFAB has gone to second place with 129.279, only 0.02 away from Azure. Azure is now on a lap. I do believe this is a push lap with the way he's throwing that Ferrari through here. We did actually have a Ferrari power unit issue a little bit earlier, where during the practice server, the turbo decided to give up the ghost and explode in true Ferrari fashion. But we are not going to have. Oh, and that is a little bit of contact with the wall there. Damage is a thing on the server. It looks like he has managed to get away with that one. Possibly a little bit of desync and possibly not actual contact with the wall there, although it looked pretty severe. So Azure pushing to the very limits of the tracks. It did still have the time. It did still have an advantage on the times going through there, and so we'll probably see him do a little bit of a fast lap, probably 2, maybe 3 tenths quicker than his previous time, depending on whether he can manage to pull it together in this final sector. Going through 130R now, and let's see how he does here now, heading down towards the casino, the Casio chicane rather. What on earth is that? So Azure now coming down towards the start finish line and crosses the line and managed to lose quite a lot of time in that final sector. So unfortunate there for Azure, not managing to make up some time there. Oh, Dean throwing it into that first corner, and a little bit too hard and spins out and gets a little bit on the grass, and you can see how quickly you lose the car going through the grass there. Let's see, that was an AlphaTauri behind him, Darth Maul, and we saw Darth pretty quick early on. He was one of the guys right on the pace, but has fallen down to 6th at the moment. Hopefully there is track evolution for him to take advantage of. Now heading down into the double right-hander, diagonal curve first, and then into the second right-hander, which according to the map I'm looking at doesn't actually have a name, which is unusual. And now up towards the hairpin, which is imaginatively called the hairpin, so easy enough to remember there. Takes a little bit of a wider line there, doesn't get onto the apex, wheel spin on the exit there. We've seen a few people wheel spin on the exit there. And now heading down towards spoon curve, which is this double left-hander. It can be taken as a single long sweeping left, and you have to modulate your pace all the way through there, and it looks like Darth Maul has done a decent job. Unfortunately, we will only know how well he does towards the end. Let's see if timings does help us. No, it does not. So yeah, coming through 130R, takes it nice and wide on the exit of 130R, not as narrow through there as Azure sometimes goes, but through the Casio triangle. And now let's see what he can do as he crosses. It comes towards the line very far down on this track in this game, 1.7 behind his previous best lap, so it hasn't managed to find that lap time that I'm sure he was looking for there. Rigger currently is coming down the straight towards 130R. Let's see what he can do in the other AlphaTauri and see if he can make something of this lap. Now just the triangle to go, and let's hope he can get some extra time there. Currently 3.5 seconds off the pace, but obviously this is quite a new experience to a couple of these guys, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see them getting faster and faster as the evening goes on. So Rego coming across the line there, possibly starting a lap, considering how far across on the left-hand side he was there. Doesn't look like he's taking advantage of the apex through that first corner, and now into the S's. Will he be able to keep it together and riding the curves quite nicely, not quite pushing the car to its limits as far as using the entire track, and unfortunately goes a little bit too far as the car snaps a tiny bit there, and he's going to have to try and keep going. You can reset to the pit box in this game, but you can also bog down, and you can see that AlphaTauri is doing exactly that, trying to bog down through there. So Otten's 0.6 of a second behind his previous time. Let's see if he is on a lap. Difficult to tell who is on a lap and who isn't. A little bit of tire wear or tire screeching through there, and you could see the tire smoke as he went through there. So pushing quite hard on the curbs there, and hopefully not as hard as we saw Rego pushing earlier. It looks like a much better line through the little chicane there of, what is that? That is the Dunlop curve. Now through Degner, and it looks like he's taking a nice line through there. Just a nice sweeping run of the wheel then, up on his previous time by 1.192 seconds. So previous time not great, that 131.932, 2.9 seconds back, but was already quite far up on this lap, so it looks like he's going to be troubling his previous best time and possibly moving up the standings as well with this lap going as it currently is. So now coming up to 130R, 2.3 seconds up on his previous lap. This is actually going to put him probably into third place if he manages, as you're setting the new fastest lap. But Ottens looks like he's going to get a good lap here, possibly will put him up into second or third position. We'll see as he comes across the line, and third place, only 0.2 off K-Fan. So good lap there by Ottens in the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. And so I'm sure he's going to be pushing even harder. Dean has also set a good lap, only 0.8 off Azure's time, and looks like Dean is actually coming to a stop. And interestingly, it looks like the game will allow you to use the same livery as someone else. So that's probably something we're going to need to keep an eye on. But it looks like there is a yellow flag there. Not entirely sure what that was. Ottens does come through that section with no problems though, so that should be fine. So yeah, let's see how the guys are doing. Altman is on a lap, only 200ths down on his previous time. So let's see whether he can find some time in the second and third sectors. That wheel spin coming out of the hairpin seems to be pretty much just a feature of this track, and yeah, so just one of those things. Where I'm just going to check where Azura is. He is going through the first sector at the moment, so we'll stay on with Altman and see how he's going. And unfortunately, what he's done is found the gravel there. So reset to the pit box, and he'll, I'm sure, be out incredibly quickly once again. Zintax in the other Ferrari, the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, comes across the line. I don't believe that was a lap, but let's ride on board with him and see how he goes. So as Zintax comes across the line, unfortunately not going too much quicker than his previous time, so not finding too much time there, so still in 6th position and hopping back to the pits to try and get underway very quickly again. Please let me know if the volume is a little bit better. The game's volume is a little bit high at the moment, so I can still turn that down a little bit, and that might help with the commentary volume. But yeah, just let me know if there is anything wrong, and thank you for pointing it out, Crunchy. It's yeah, as I said, first time streaming on this profile, so still trying to work out any new bugs. Zero getting to the top with a new fastest lap, now 6/10 ahead of K-Fan in second. K-Fan coming to the Cassia Triangle at the moment. Let's see if he can do anything to catch up to Azure, who's flying out in front. 6/10 of a second to try and catch up, coming towards the line now, and crosses it right now, and 7.8 seconds back. I imagine that was an outlap, so we'll see his lap now live in that Williams, and unfortunately throwing the Williams a little bit hard into the first corner. Now through the S's, does he look clean? It looks a little bit scrappy at the moment, but I'm sure we'll see it. 5% more voice volume. Let me see what I can do. Okay, cool. That should be a little bit better there, unless it's busy limiting it in OBS itself. But yeah, so far so good. 300ths of a second up for KFAM, so a little bit more time to find, but that is obviously just the first sector. We've seen most of the time coming from the second and third sectors, so let's see if KFAM can find that time as he comes towards Spoon. Thank you very much for helping me troubleshoot that. So yeah, let's see if KFAM can do it. 20 seconds left in the quali session, and so far Azure definitely out in front quite convincingly. 6/10 back to KFan. Otten's in third, 8/10 back, and then Dean, I'm just going to say Dean, unfortunately 2/10 back for KFan, and Dean actually doing a better lap there, going up into second position. Qualifying is now complete, so this will be the final lap. Has KFan found something through 130R and the triangle? He comes across the line right about now, and unfortunately no better on his previous lap. Otten's the only person left out in on the track. Can he find a little bit more time than the 4th place that he's currently in? And I don't believe he did. So Azure out in front, Dean in second, Kyle Busch in third. And let's see how we do. So 26 laps to go. Azure out in front, Dean in second, K-Fan in third, Ottens in fourth, Altman fifth, Zintax in sixth, Darthmol seventh, and Rego in eighth position. I'm hoping that things haven't crashed. I don't think things have crashed. It hasn't said anything. Okay, so the server is still responding. I'm not entirely sure why we're just sitting here. Okay, I will be right back. I just want to see what's going on. Okay, so no idea what happened there, but now we're heading down into the first corner. K-Fan has managed to get a good getaway. Azure in second, Dean in third, Darthmol in fourth, Altman in fifth place, and we've lost a car. Not entirely sure who is that, but unfortunately lost the car already and completely disappeared off the face of the timing screen, and not entirely sure what's happening there. Oh, and a second car has crashed out. That might just be... No, I think that is actually those cars retired from the race. So two crashes in the first couple of sectors, and really unfortunate there. Two guys down, 26 laps to go. K-Fan currently in first. It looks like there might be some sort of yellow flag. Unfortunately, no display for me as race director, which is a little bit unusual. But there we have it. I do see yellow flag listed in the top right there. Mechanical fault, Dean. I don't think that is current. No, surely that is not current because there's a fastest lap listed there. Is the safety car coming out? It looks like the safety car is coming out. K-Fan in first, Dean in second, Darthmol in... I swear people are running out of fuel. Let me go see what's what's happening. As I said, first time using the server, so maybe a couple of glitches going on, but let me go see what's happening. Alrighty, apologies for that slight technical hitch. Unfortunately, there were a couple of issues with the start. So yeah, let's head out. The guys are going to be heading out. They'll have a 2-minute practice session just to sort out all their setups and everything once again. And then they'll get underway with the race start. No quali this time, so it's going to be a randomized grid. They basically agreed that it's not going to make much of a difference. So yeah, we'll see the race start very shortly and hopefully go further than the first sector. How's it, Humid? Welcome to the chat. So all 8 racers have managed to load in, so we should be good to go in 2 minutes or 1 minute and 45 seconds now. We'll go to the grid just so that you guys are not looking at a static image, and yeah, we'll see the guys head out just now. Alrighty, so practice session coming to an end, and we will be getting underway hopefully shortly. I saw a couple of people doing some practice starts over there, so I'm sure we'll be seeing good things from them once we get to the start itself. Not 100% sure what happened with this, so I don't know how long exactly we're going to be waiting, possibly about a minute. I think this might be a sort of safety net to make sure that everyone loads in. But Dean has ended up on the front of the grid. Rego in second, Darth Maul in third, Ottens in fourth, Altman in fifth, Zintax sixth, Zero and Kfan in seventh and eighth. So we should see some decent racing from the guys as they get underway. As I said, I think there is possibly a little bit of a delay to the start. Just allow everyone to join, and there we go. Azura and Kfan are in the back of the grid because of the technical issue we had in the beginning. Dean getting a terrible getaway, Reko sliding that car down almost into the pit wall there, and Kfan already making up a couple of places. Azura already up into fourth, but going off at turn one. A little bit of chaos in the back there, and Altman spinning across the grass, manages to keep that car out of the wall. Does he keep it going? He does indeed, so he's going to get back underway. Azura has lost a couple of places in those moments there. Going through the S's, let's get the map up so we can see what's going on as we see another, I think that was a Darth Maul in the background, and Zintax also showing that Formula 1 cars can rally as well. Rego still maintaining out in front, so well done to Rego for keeping that first position. Dean is now 8/10 back. Kfan not too far back from Dean, and looks at the inside of the corner. He is driving in the Audi. Audi. Does he manage to take the position? No, it looks like he has had to back out, and now heading down towards Spoon. Will he be able to catch up a little bit? It looks like, who is that? That is Ottens, who managed to make up that position. So great move there by Ottens, getting through on K-Fan, and now he's got Dean in front of him. Dean, and that is a 0 right on the back of K-Fan already. I'd forgotten that he dropped back that far, and now he is going to chase down the Audi in front of him and see whether he can get through. Jarvis, welcome to the chat. Yeah, this is, so far it does look like quite a lot of fun. The car is obviously a little bit different to the Formula 1 cars. No racing line, so everyone is just sort of making it up as they go along. The setups are much more in-depth. Everything from the brake inlet width and basically the size of the brake inlet and everything can be adjusted, and so a lot going on in this in the game AMS2, and yeah, 0 up into 3rd place now, right on the back of Ottens already, and looks like he's going to try. No, doesn't go for it just yet, and now heads up through. Oh, and that is a little bit of contact with the cones. Ottens deciding to murder a whole bunch of cones, and now we'll see the positions to Azure. Azure now up into 2nd place after starting all the way at the back, and let's see whether he can make a move on Rego going into the hairpin. No, not quite close enough this time. So, but gets a good exit there, and not quite good enough to get ahead of Rego. Obviously, these guys do have ERS, but what they were finding was that the ERS was running out incredibly quickly, so they might be trying to conserve it as much as possible. Azure may have just tapped the back of Rego there. No, it looks like Rego is still fine as they go through Spoon Curve, and now we'll look at the inside of him for the 130R. Does he manage to maintain the lead, or he doesn't? He actually pulls back in behind Rego, so deciding that he doesn't quite have the overspeed that he needed to get past there, and now is still behind Rego going through the Casio Triangle. Will he have DRS? No, he should only have DRS next lap. I'm not sure if DRS is a thing in AMS2. I guess we'll find out on the next lap, but Zero coming across the line, and now only 4/10s back from Rego in the Alfa Romeo, and massive contact there between the two of them. Damage is enabled in this game, so that might actually affect both of them quite substantially. Front wing will likely be damaged for Azure, rear wing and diffuser for Rego, as Rego gets shuffled off the track and into the wall, and now has to try and make his way across the gravel. It doesn't look like there's any visual damage, but I don't know if there is visual damage in this game. He does look like he's struggling with that Alfa Romeo now and going quite slowly through here. I think there is massive damage on that Alfa Romeo after that little bit of contact between him and Azure, and yeah, unfortunate there for Rego. He managed to keep the lead of the race for quite a while. Azure now out in front, Ottens right behind. Ottens not involved in any of the incidents, so he will not have damage on that Audi, and I'm sure that will help him as he chases down Azure out in front. K-Fan, who we saw some incredible pace from in the quali, unfortunately only in 6th position, so struggling to get through the field. He is quite far back as well, 44 seconds back from Rego's 19 seconds that he's fallen back, but Rego is obviously still coming through. Spoon has lost another position to Altman, so down in 5th place now already, and losing time all the while. Looks like he's losing almost a second almost a second per second, to be honest, to these guys out in front. And you can see how slowly he's doing. Oh, that car is not looking good. Oh, that's a front right. He's got a puncture on the front right. Well, he has no tire on the front right. So Rego limping back to the pit lane, and hopefully he does manage to make it back, but that Alfa Romeo not going well. Azure out in front, Ottens in 2nd, Zintax in 3rd, Altman in 4th, K-Fan now in 5th position, Darthmol in 6th, Rego in 7th, still keeping going, and Dean in the pits. And what are those mechanics doing? Staring at the car. I imagine damage is being repaired. Rego, oh, still at Spoon. Oh, he's got such a long way to go. As Azure on lap 4 is currently already going through the hairpin. He's actually going to come up on Rego. I believe everyone's using pretty much the same setups. Yes, Azure did figure out some setups that worked. As I said, everything from the brake, the front brake inlets to everything else can be adjusted in this game. So I'm pretty sure he did recommend a whole bunch of changes to the default setup earlier in the practice sessions, and so they should be using pretty much equal setups. AMS2 is currently, it's not too expensive at the moment. There is a little bit of DLC that you would need to get to be able to race in the league. I'm pretty sure it's just a track pack of some form. Yeah, so if you are keen, go and check it out on Steam. It's not ridiculously expensive like the Formula 1 games or anything like that. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. There should be a practiced server running pretty much constantly, assuming it doesn't crash or anything while I'm not around. But yeah, there is a practice server up pretty much constantly. Details are in the Raceface Discord, so go give it a look. But yeah, this is the Formula 1 the Formula 1 Championship we are running in AMS2. 8 rounds should be done by the end of next month. But back to the racing on track. Azure out in front, Otten's in second, Zintax in third, and Otten's really making sure not to let go of that Ferrari ahead of him. Kfan in fifth, Darth Maul in sixth, Rego in seventh, still trying to limp his way now, coming up to the Casio triangle at the moment. So unfortunate there for Rego. Dean is coming out of the pits finally, so obviously had some sort of massive damage to that Mercedes, has managed to get it done now, fixed now, 6 minutes back from the pack. So nice to see that it's not the end of the race, although realistically I don't know if he's going to be able to catch up at all. And Rego looks like he is having to spin up those rear tires quite substantially. Now comes through into the pits as Azure finishes lap, Azure and Ottens come through for lap 6. So yeah, let's see whether Rego can pick his pit box. I do believe pit stops are entirely manual, so has to get into his pit box, hit his mark, and do they take a while? Is there other damage to that car that he's going to have to get repaired? Tires coming off, tires going back on. Does he get released immediately? No, I think they are repairing the car, and that might take a little bit of a while, so we'll keep an eye on when Rego comes out of the pits. But yeah, so far so good. Azure out in front, Otten's in second. Otten's has fallen back a little bit, 1.6 seconds back. Zintax in third, 5.4 seconds back from, I don't know if that's from the leader, or if that is from the car ahead. It doesn't look like this is going to give me any real information. Azure driver ahead here, Zintax driver behind. Okay, so that is from the leader. That is a leader gap there. So you can see what we're looking at the moment. Ottens is falling back a little bit from Azure, so I think Azure is starting to find the rhythm here, and he's starting to pull away a little bit from Ottens, but Zintax 3.4 seconds back. We'll see how he does there. He does look like he's catching a little bit, so that might actually become a battle soon. Kfan, who we saw a decent amount of pace from in quali, as mentioned, 24 seconds back from Altman, 16 seconds ahead of Darth Maul, and you can see that time coming down, so Darth Maul is putting in some decent times as well. So 7 laps down, 19 to go, and the Ferraris of Azure and Zintax in first and third, so doing quite well. And Otten's falling back in the Audi a little bit more and more each lap, and Zintax not losing that much time at the moment. So it does look like Zintax, and you can see Zintax in shot there. So it does look like Zintax is starting to catch up to Otten's, and it looks like he's catching up fairly well. Best at Delta, 10th tenth and a half up on his previous time. And you can see he is starting to catch the Audi of Ottens in front of him there as we head down towards Spoon. Let's keep an eye on this and see exactly how quickly he's going to start catching. Quite nicely, we can go on board in this game and it's not completely deafening. So yeah, I'm going to be using some of the onboard cameras as you can see a little bit of curb tail usage there, but not as much as we might see in other games. And 4.3 seconds back, so Zintax might be burning some ERS or might just be pushing a little bit harder. 4.5 tenths of a second quicker than his best lap, and he is now catching up to the back of that Audi. Gets a little bit out of the slipstream there, maybe feeling a little bit of dirty air. Looked like the Audi went a little bit wide on the exit of the triangle, and that's going to give Zintax a little bit more of a chance to catch up on to the back of Ottens, and it looks like he's doing exactly that, 7/10 of a second, and now right on the back of that Audi as we head through into the S's. What's the bumper? The bumper just doesn't show anything. So yeah, doing quite well. It doesn't look like we can see exactly what's happening on the wheel there, but you can see how claustrophobic these cars can be on the inside of them, and it really doesn't feel as big as it actually is. A little bit of lift there by Zintax to make sure that he doesn't catch up to Ottens going through the Deckner curves, and now up towards the hairpin. Will he go for a different line through here? Looks like he's taking pretty much the same line through there as the car ahead, and so that it will mean he will have to try and outdrag him, probably coming out of Spoon. I don't think he's going to try and pass into Spoon, but he does look like he's making himself quite large in the mirrors of the Audi, and actually does manage to get a pass through Spoon. So a bunch of extra pace in that Ferrari, but Zintax goes wide coming out of Spoon, and that puts him into the gravel, and unfortunately that has dropped him quite far back. Let's have a look at the overview. 1.6 seconds back already, and quite a long way down to 130R. 130R practically flat, or is normally flat, I'm not entirely sure with this game, and the setup's being a little bit different, but yeah, that's probably flat. So loses a whole bunch of time due to that little trip through the gravel. 2.2 seconds, and now he should be able to start pushing again, and you can see already 2/10 down, so gets a decent run out of the Casio triangle, and now back underway. Rego in the meantime has managed to come out 6.3 minutes back, and that's a good couple of laps. He's on lap 5, Azure on lap 9, so 3 laps between the two of them. So as you can see, we do have everyone get quite a big split between everyone. Last lap by Azure was a 133.635. Ottens in second has managed a 134.263. Zintax a 135.556. 132 and 132.899 and 132.816 by Altman and Kyle Busch. So the two of them pushing quite hard, although Kyle Busch may have made a mistake on that last lap of 144 on his previous run. Darth Maul, Dean 133s, and Rego obviously has 50 seconds of penalties. What would that be for, I wonder? But unfortunate there for Rego, and yeah, you can see that is how the race is looking at the moment. In the meantime, Ottens and Zintax have managed to close up on each other once again. Zintax in that Ferrari chasing down the Audi once again, and it does seem to have a decent amount of pace in that Ferrari. Will he be able to keep it on track this time? Hopefully, yes. We've got Rego into the pits once again, and that's going to drop him back even further. Not entirely sure how the penalties work in this game, if he can serve them in the pits or if that will be added at the end of the race, but that's not ideal for anyone. 50 seconds of penalties, that's that's a good chunk of a lap, almost 2/3 of a lap around this circuit, so not ideal there for Rego, but I'm sure we'll see him keep running out there. The safety car in the pits at the moment. K-Fan suspension failure. Oh no. That's really unfortunate. I wonder if he maybe went over a curb a little bit too hard, or possibly crashed into the wall. Unfortunately, didn't see it, and I don't think there is a replay feature in this game, which is a little bit unfortunate. Yeah, the race director is exactly what you guys are seeing on the screen at the top there. So it doesn't look like there's anything to do with replays. I'm going to look to see if there are any other tools that I can try and find to assist with the stream. But yeah, that's really unfortunate for K-Fan. Obviously, we saw some pace from him earlier, and it didn't seem to translate into the race itself. So Zintax now within a second of Ottens ahead, and we'll get to see whether there is a DRS in this game. That was the DRS detection zone just before the triangle. So will Zintax get DRS coming down the start-finish straight? It should open up right about now, and I don't see any DRS on that rear wing. So that's a little unfortunate. Obviously, DRS is something that does that the real-life Formula 1 cars do rely on quite a lot for their passes. Possibly the track not having a DRS zone, or just otherwise these cars are not designed with a DRS system. I don't know if I see any gaps in... no, I do see gaps in the rear wing, so it doesn't look like the rear wing could potentially open, but I'm not sure if maybe this track just doesn't have a DRS zone loaded onto the track map itself. But Zintax now right on the back of Ottens, was within basically spitting distance, 5/10 back at the moment, and this would explain why everyone is trying to pass down into Spoon Curve, because without the help of the DRS you have to find a good braking zone to be able to get past. The hairpin is a pretty good one, Spoon is another good one, and we can see Zintax on the inside of Spoon manages to keep it on the inside, and the two of them side by side, and managing to keep it side by side through that entire section. And now we'll see them racing down towards 130R. Will Zintax manage to keep the position? Will he keep it on the inside? He does indeed. The two of them going incredibly quick through 130R, and now coming towards the triangle. It looks like Zintax has dropped back once again. Heavy braking zone. Can he get a better exit than the car ahead? We saw Otten spinning his tires up there, so will that compromise his exit a little bit? Doesn't look like it's compromised it enough. Zintax pulling into the slipstream, looks to the inside of the first corner, and unfortunately not close enough this time again. So Ottens in the Audi manages to keep positions, and Zintax just harassing him all the way through the S-bends, and Zero out in front, quietly running away. 7.6 seconds now as these two fight behind, and let's see what they can do. Grant, I'm going to take a guess that you are a K-fan? So once again through Spoon side by side, a little bit of contact between Ottens and Zintax, but the two of them are still pushing as hard as they possibly can to try and get this position. Coming up to 130R again, and Zintax is slightly ahead this time. I don't think it was last time, and now he has managed to make that past. Only 0.2 of a second between the two of them, so Ottens isn't out just yet. Takes a slightly better line through the triangle, and you can see on that exit, 0.2 of a second. Looks like it's coming down a little bit all the time. The gap not quite as even as we see in some other games. Zintax weaving around a little bit. I do believe that was a tiny bit of lag causing that weird weaving at the moment, but Ottens is now properly in third position. Zintax has kept the place and made the overtake stick, and Altman actually coming into the pits. So there is one mandatory pit stop. There is not a mandatory tire compound change, so he has come into the pits for his mandatory pit stop. There's no mandatory tire change, so it goes on to another set of softs, and you can see maybe a little bit of damage somewhere that is being repaired, but it looks like he's moving his wheels around, so a little bit frustrated with the delay. And Darth Maul gets through on Altman due to Altman being stuck in the pits. Dean Carlotanash is now coming through as well and will get past Altman as well. Oh no, he is a couple of laps down. Altman is on lap 12 and now moving once again. Dean is on lap 11, so one lap down. Rego on lap 8 after his puncture early on with his contact with Azure. So Rego still out there circulating 8 laps under his belt. Azure 13 laps as he comes, 14 laps as he comes across the line once again. And you can see once again Azure's lap times are incredibly consistent. 133.029 his best lap, 133.098 his last lap. So that consistency that we've seen from Azure in a number of games, exactly what makes him as quick as he is. Otten's the only other person on the same Zintax is also on the same lap, and Zintax looks like he's managed to come into the pits and get out incredibly quickly, so no damage on that Ferrari. So Altman must have had some sort of damage which caused the pit crew to hold him back a little bit longer than what we just saw in Zintax's pit stop. So Azure out in front, Otten's 9.4 seconds back. Zintax now 36 seconds off the lead, but with a pit stop having been done. Will the undercut work? Obviously, fresh, soft tires, if he can fire them up quickly enough, he will be able to maybe do a little bit of an undercut, but obviously there were those 7 to 9 seconds worth of gap between Azure and everyone else, so might not be quite enough for an undercut, but let's see what happens. It's worth a shot when nothing else is really working. Zintax was in second after just making his way past Ottens, so Ottens now also has to try and respond. Wow. So Otten still has to respond as far as pits is concerned. Not happening this lap. Azure as well pushing a little bit longer into the race. I do believe both of them are on the soft tires. They are indeed. So Zintax needs to really push and needs to try and find some pace there. 35 seconds back now, and Ottens is falling back a little bit from Azure a little bit further. So maybe the tires are starting to go off. Zintax may have made a good call going in for those tires a little bit earlier than the other guys. Yes, he will have to push a little bit longer into the race, but fuel should be burning off all the time. Can't refuel in this race. The server should forbid it. So yeah, we will see what happens. And Zintax currently coming through the S-curves, and let's see if he can keep it together through here, and if he can find some time. 36 seconds back now, so losing a little bit of time through the S-curves, but it's now dropping all the time. So the timing screen of this game is very, very, very by the second almost, and I think that does lead to some interesting gaps forming. The actual calculation to see how far behind someone is, it doesn't seem to be entirely as accurate or entirely as stable as some other games, and yeah. Definitely does make it a little bit difficult to tell how people are doing. 34.0 seconds now though, and then suddenly up to 34.9. So yeah, once again, just exactly that. It's difficult to tell where people are in relation to each other. Azure starts lap 16. Ottens goes on as well. Zintax is catching, so he's caught about 2 seconds up to the back of Azure actually. So he's faster even than the leader out in front, according to this. Let's go across to timings and see if that is supported. Yeah, 132.427. So those fresh softs definitely working incredibly well. He does have the fastest lap so far. Yes, indeed he does. So yeah, stopping early definitely. Oh, and someone has just disappeared off the tracker, and I do believe that is Rego. And not entirely sure where he dropped off or whether we'd be able to see his stricken car, but Rego has now dropped off as well. So yeah, unfortunate there for Rego. Early contact with Azure, a puncture that may have come from that contact, although if I recall correctly, he was contacted on the rear, so puncture was on the front, so not 100% sure how that happened, but Rego now retiring from the race as well. So 16 laps in, 10 laps left to go. We see Azure coming through the Casio triangle now. Does he hop into the pits this run? No, he does not. Staying out once again. Ottens as well is trying to Rego went into the wall as a result of the... Oh, right. Okay, cool. That would explain why he ended up with that puncture. Really unfortunate there for Rego. But yeah, unfortunately now out of the race as well, as we see Ottens coming in. So we'll now be able to see whether Syntax made a good choice with the undercut attempt. As he comes towards the Casio triangle, it looks like he is going to be close enough. It does look like he's done enough on his outlaps to be able to at least fight. But Otten's already starting to move again, so they might actually come out. He might actually come out side by side with Syntax. No, Syntax does take the position. Ottens comes out quite far behind, so that undercut gamble has definitely worked. Let's have a look at Syntax now. 6 seconds, 5 seconds. Obviously, that will stabilize somewhere. 5 seconds, 5.5 seconds. It looks like so. Yeah, definitely not a bad idea for Syntax to have come in a little bit earlier. This will give Azure a pretty free pit stop, but Otten's 5.3 seconds back at the moment, and he will be pushing on those fresh, soft tires. I'm sure we're going to see him push as hard as he possibly can to make up the deficit to Syntax ahead. Thank you, Bertus. It's a pleasure to be here. But yeah, so out in front Azir, as we sort of expect at this point, and it looks like Azir is coming into the pits this lap. Does need to react to the guys behind. Syntax and Artens both have pit as well, and they are pushing. We saw the undercut is pretty powerful, but there was 30-something seconds for Azir to play with, and it looks like Azir is already moving once again. So, but Syntax is coming through the final corner, and he might actually have a little bit more pace in this Ferrari than his teammate, especially as they come down. And somehow this has actually worked. Almost 9 seconds cut down to just 4, just 1 in fact. So before the pit stops, there were 9 or 10 seconds gap between Azure and anyone else. Looks like that last lap on those soft tires were not great for Azure, and he's lost a lot of time. Still 2 seconds between him and Syntax, but definitely closer than we saw earlier. Ottens hasn't managed to make the undercut work quite as well, but he'll be wanting to push on towards the end of the race a little bit harder. 8 laps left to go to take these softs to the end. Obviously, we saw most of the first of the pit stops about halfway through the race, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem for these guys to push these softs all the way to the end with the fuel burning off as well. Massive wheel spin there for Ottens coming out of the hairpin, which we have seen from pretty much everyone through there. Ottens is in Sebastian Vettel's concept Audi, which is why he's running that number 5. So he's going to be trying to push harder towards the end of the race. Darth Maul in 4th position, Altman in 5th, Dean in 6th position. Dean is a couple of laps down due to a very long pit stop earlier on to repair some damage. So unfortunately not really in the race for the lead, but Syntax is now starting to fall back from Azir. Ottens doesn't look like he's catching too much either, so it looks like these guys are slowly starting to extend their gaps a little bit. Ottens does have slightly fresher tires than Syntax, so we might see that come together towards the end of the race as the soft tires start to wear out a little bit more, and Syntax might start moving back a little bit further. Azure has very fresh tires, so he is likely to just extend his gap towards the end of the race, but Syntax and Ottens, I wouldn't be surprised to see the two of them coming closer to each other towards the end of the race. 9 laps left to go for these guys out in front, as we see a little bit of a moment through the second part of the Degner curve there, and yeah, they're pushing quite hard there, Syntax, and I wonder if he does feel the pressure from Ottens behind on those fresher tires. Ooh, and might be feeling that pressure more than we expected, going very wide coming out of Spoon Curve, and that has definitely dropped the gap between himself and Ottens. Ottens 2 seconds back now as they go through 130R. The Casio Triangle coming up next, and does he get a good run through there? Doesn't look like a bad one, and Ottens, unfortunately, we couldn't catch his run through there, but it looks like a good exit, and he is now going to be pushing even harder with the car ahead even closer, and you can see their best lap delta is 0.07 of a second quicker than his previous best lap. So people pushing as hard as they can, and looking at the timings now, Zero best of a 130.028. He's going to be checking out in the front. That was actually his last lap as well. Zintax 133.2 that last lap, Ottens 131.6. So definite pace differential between Ottens and Zintax. Ottens is able to push a little bit harder because of those fresher tires, and Zintax needs to keep that in mind. He doesn't want to push too hard, take everything out of his tires, and end up a sitting duck on the final lap. But at the same time, he doesn't want to back off too much, conserve too much tires, and end up a sitting duck even before then. So a very delicate balancing game for Zintax here. He did pit earlier than the other three fighting for the lead, so he does need to keep his tires in mind, and hopefully he does do exactly that. We also know that these guys are going to need to keep their fuel in mind as well. There are no limits on how much fuel they can dump out. So if they did want to go incredibly aggressive, if they did want to conserve their tires a little bit more, they could potentially have gone for a significant underfuel, which would give them a weight advantage, a slight weight advantage, but a weight advantage nevertheless, which could allow them to push a little bit harder on the tires. It could push a little bit harder for a few laps, but then they'd have to lift and coast for a number of laps towards the end of the race, or possibly in the middle stint when nothing was going on. So we'll see how these guys do, but it definitely does look like Ottens is starting to turn up the pace, and Zintax did have a good lap on that last lap, a 131.943. It was his best lap of the race, but Ottens, even with it not being his best lap of the race, a 131.773. Zero once again got a fastest lap of the race, a 129.861. So finding the rhythm in that other Ferrari, unlike the current Ferrari driver that normally inhabits that Ferrari. And luckily during this race, the Ferrari Turbo, not remembering who it's made by, as we had earlier, as mentioned, we did have a couple of turbo failures earlier on with how aggressive Azura's driving style is. So yeah, maybe it's something we should look at, is just random mechanical failures, or just mechanical failures in general from overstressing the poor cars, and it might make for a very interesting race. Where everyone's trying to manage the car's health as well as push as hard as they can. But Zintax currently coming through the triangle once again. Ottens are right behind, and as they come down the start-finish straight, Zintax 1.6 seconds ahead. That was up to that was at 2 seconds only a couple of laps ago. 4 laps to go. 5 laps to go, depending on how the lap counter works. And Zintax needs to try and hold on, but it is going to be incredibly hard, and you can see that car seems to be sliding around more and more every lap, and that is because he's been pushing as hard as he possibly can. A brilliant pair of outlaps did manage to get him to the point where when Azure eventually did come into pit, Zintax wasn't too far behind, and he did manage to undercut Ottens to the point where he did gain the position, but the 2-3 laps, I can't remember exactly how many between the two of them, the pit stops, it does show now, because these tires are starting to wear out, and you can see the difference between Ottens and Zintax. Ottens definitely starting to catch more and more as they go through Spoon now once again for the 22nd time. Zintax might be regretting that decision to go for the undercut, even though he did get track position, and we did see a good battle between himself and Ottens earlier on. Ottens on the fresher tires might have just too much of an advantage. You could see it through the triangle there. Syntax going very deep into the triangle, into the first part of that chicane, and Ottens taking a much stronger line and has managed to catch up a ridiculous amount just in that little section. So these two are going to fight all the way to the end, and let's go have a look at what it looks like from inside the cockpit for Ottens as he goes around on this lap a little bit wide there, coming through the last couple of parts of the S's, and you can hear he lifts off quite a lot going through the final S, and now going through Dunlop curve, it looks like he's pushing nice and hard. The gear counter not really displaying on the wheel. A little bit of correction coming through the second part of the Degner curve, and now going into the hairpin, and takes a very, very, very sharp line through that late apex, and that should give him a slightly better exit than otherwise. And you can see he is pushing as hard as he can, trying to maximize every straight, trying to get through the corners as quickly as possible. You can hear just a single gear down at the beginning of Spoon, and then another one in the middle of the corner to try and get the car rotated just a little bit more. 1.3 seconds back from Syntax at the moment, and really interesting to see the guys going through the corners with these cars. Not doing a fastest lap so far is Ottens, but we'll see how as they come across the line. Azur's last lap, a 130.030, so maybe lifting off a little bit on the last lap. Syntax get a 131.4, and Ottens gets a 131.4 as well. So the gap is staying a little bit steady that time, as I think Ottens is maybe pushing a little bit too hard, and we saw him lose it in this second half of the S-Bends, so maybe lost a little bit of time there. So he has 3 laps left, including this one, to try and catch up to the back of Syntax. Syntax is doing a great job to try and keep him behind, just keeping his nose clean, making sure he hits those apexes, making sure he gets out of those corners as fast as possible. Ottens now making up a massive amount of time through the Degner curves, and now as they go through the hairpin, Ottens is practically right on top of Syntax, all out of practically nowhere. That was a good first sector there by Ottens, or possibly a not so good one by Syntax. I'm sure Syntax is going to be kicking himself if that is the case. You can hear Ottens gets onto the power very early coming through the second part of Spoon, and now down towards 130R. You can see that gap coming down all the time as we sit on the bonnets at 0.2 of a second faster than his previous best lap, and possibly a little bit of contact there between the two of them as they go through the triangle. Ottens goes for a slightly more aggressive line out of the triangle, doesn't manage to pull it off exactly, but doesn't lose too much time either. Now down the start finish straight, tucks into the slipstream, goes to the outside of turn 1, and that should be all he not quite a perfect overtake there, a little bit of contact going into turn 1, but Ottens going for the overcut, managed to come out behind Syntax. Syntax's undercut working well, but the tire deg, unfortunately, possibly just a little bit too much for Syntax to hold on until the end of the race, and now Ottens is free to push without the dirty air ahead of him. So Azure out in front, almost 20 seconds ahead of these two. For a moment there, it was 19 seconds, or 19 and a bit, and now down to 18, and now back up to 19. So can't really trust the time screens that much. But Zero out in front, almost 20 seconds ahead. Ottens in second. Syntax now in third. Has about a lap and a half to try and do something to catch up to the back of Ottens again. Will get the slipstream down the 2 significant straights, the first of which is coming up right now, so won't have given up just yet. Darth Maul in 4th, Altman in 5th, Dean in 6th position, and a couple of laps back. And you can see Syntax is going to the outside of the triangle. If he manages to keep it around the inside, oh, well, he unfortunately goes a little bit wide there, backs out of it, and gives a position back to Ottens. Ottens will now try and leg it down the start finish straight onto the final lap of the race. So if Zintax is going to be able to do anything, it has to be on this lap. Maybe it has managed to save some ERS, but it won't matter. Ottens goes off at the first corner, and that has opened the door for Zintax to get through. The two of them are now chasing each other through the S-bends. Ottens right on the back of Zintax. That Audi is looking incredibly quick, and it looks like it wants to be released. But yeah, unfortunate mistake there by Ottens through the first corner. It pushes him out wide onto the curb. Zintax takes advantage and is now going through the degrading curves. Will he manage to keep the position? First major braking zone is now into the hairpin. Will Ottens go to the inside? We'll ride on board with Ottens to see exactly what he's seeing. You can see that Ferrari going trying to maximize the exit out of there. Ottens going aggressive, trying to find some open air to get past the Ferrari. The Ferrari putting himself in the middle of the track to try and hold on to the position. Ottens goes for a slightly later apex line through the spoon curve, and it looks like it has paid off now right on the back of Zintax as they head down towards 130R. We've seen them both do moves through 130R. Will this happen once again? Looks at the inside, race complete, Azure coming across the line, and Ottens has managed to make it past Zintax. Zintax looks to the inside of the Casio triangle, gets onto the brakes, a little bit of a lockup there, and I think that is the end of the battle. Unfortunately, for Zintax, Ottens gets through once again just before the end, going through the Casio triangle, and Zintax, after a hard battle there, some great racing by the two of them. Azure out in first, Ottens in second, Zintax in third, putting his car into a wall, and race complete. Darth Maul in fourth position, Altman in fifth, and Dean disappearing off the timing screens as well. So currently Darth Maul and Altman coming down towards 130R for the final time. Incredible corner, this one, and you can see it on board. Yeah, you can see how quick it is. It's an absolute flat corner, and yeah, great run by everyone. Started with 8, 3 had managed to find walls or otherwise had lost the cars, and Darth Maul comes through in 4th, Altman in 5th, and that is the end of the race. So quite an interesting one there. Yeah, quite interesting in general, and you can see the photos have been taken. Okay, cool. So Azure out in front won the race after a total time of 40 minutes 42 seconds. Best lap time of 129.829, fastest lap of the race. Ottens in second, 20.7 seconds behind. Best lap of 131.427. Zintax in third, Darth Maul in fourth, Altman in fifth. Dean did count as finished due to finishing with finishing 90% of the race, I do believe, is the official rule. So 3 laps back, Dean managed to retire on track, I imagine. But yeah, there we have it. The first of the AMS2 or Raceface AMS2 Championship. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you guys. Hopefully we see you again next time for the race at... Let me just confirm it quickly. Next race will be at Montreal. So yeah, hopefully we see you all there, and enjoy the rest of your evening.